Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Amin ya Rabb. Today, I want to talk about a very, very important subject that I hope I'm able to deliver what I'm trying to say in an effective manner. And this is especially true for the people that are taking classes with me. And the reason is because if we're not aware of what I'm about to talk about, if we're not aware of this situation, then it will affect your studies. But if you're aware of it, then you can begin to deal with it, which will help you to achieve the results that you're trying to achieve. The question I have is, are you a zombie? What do I mean by that? You see, I drive from point A to point B and I don't even realize what happened. I'm sure you've all done that, or most of you have done that. We've gone from point A to point B and you don't even realize how you went from point A to point B. This is the type of state that we are in perpetually. I'm going to talk about this. You know, it is the same state that you are in when you have alcohol, when you are playing video games, when you are watching TV. It is a state in which you are not working based upon the rational cognitive mind, but rather it is a state in which you are working based upon your subconscious. You're working based upon the automatic processes, your limbic system, come into play. Now, when you are in that state, you know, parents say, why do kids yell back to us so much? Why don't they listen to us when we call them? Because when you are in this state of being a zombie, and there are two types, but I'm not going to discuss that today. But when you are in this state where you are not thinking, why do kids yell back? They yell back because they're not using their brain. They're not using their cognitive. They're not actually thinking what they're doing. They're just responding automatically. They're responding without thinking. Okay? Why? Because we are trained to be in that state. When you're playing video games, even though you're like thinking about the video game, but there is so much pleasure in it that you keep that little bit of thinking doesn't disturb your comfort level. See, when you're driving and you're driving and you're driving and then somebody all of a sudden comes in front of you, you come out of that state, right? Out of that zombie state, and now you have to start thinking, okay, how am I gonna deal with this? Okay? How am I gonna maneuver around this situation? And that gives us just coming into a state where we have to actually use our mind, brings us into a state of anxiety and a state of discomfort. And we are a people, we are a generation, not my generation so much, but definitely those of you that are in your 20s, in your teens, in your 30s even, we are of that generation that does not like conflict, does not like discomfort. We like to be in front of that TV that is going to give us perpetual pleasure and pleasure and pleasure, or that video game that's giving us pleasure and pleasure and pleasure. And what happens as a result? When you are in that state, where your basic mind is in the unconscious state, it is thinking based upon what? It is thinking based upon, is this comfortable? Is it not comfortable? And then why do we text people instead of talking to them? Because it's more comfortable, right? It's comfortable to the person that's sending the text. It's comfortable to the person that's receiving the text. If it's fun, you engage. If it's not fun, you can look at it and leave it alone. You don't have to do anything. But if you have to actually deal with the person, you have to come out of the zombie state and actually interact with people with your mind. This is one of the things that's wrong with couples nowadays. They deal with each other at this zombie state, right? And they're only interested if it's fun. And then if it's not fun, it's like, it's not worth dealing with you, because I'm going to actually have to think about what to say to you, what to be with you, what to do with you, what do I do with, all this. When you are in the zombie state, it's like you're in alcohol. It's like you're intoxicated, okay? And how do you get out of the zombie state? How do you get out of this state where, let me give you another example. So this is very, very clear. When people are being hypnotized, when they're in a hypnosis, okay? When you're doing hypnosis to someone, there are a few conditions. Number one, that you are relaxed. Number two, they're not going to disagree with any suggestion. So when they're totally relaxed and you have gone through this process called induction, and they're in that seat and they're relaxed and they're listening to your voice and there's no interferences and the room is kind of dark and everything is ready to go, and you're giving them those ideas and you're putting those ideas, like let's say the person smokes and you don't want them to smoke, and so now you're telling them, if you're telling them something they don't agree with, if you tell them the idea in a way they don't agree with, the suggestion, they'll immediately wake up. Why are you telling me this, right? If you do hypnosis to someone and ask them to do something they wouldn't do, they're not going to do it. They're going to wake up. They're going to come out of that hypnotic state because they felt discomfort. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make here is our children and us, we are in that state. We're like the living dead in the sense, right? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ. Don't be like those people who forget Allah because they forgot themselves. You're not even in touch with the biggest thing Allah created, which is your mind, right? You turn your mind off and you're just dealing with things like you're driving and you don't even know where you're going. You're just going and you're there. And you went from point A to point B because your body, your biology knows, but you were never really in a state of consciousness. You were never in a state of your cognitive mind. You were never aware of what you were doing. You fell into a state of subconscious. When you are in that state, by the way, that's the best time to advertise to you. That's the best time to give you, that's the best time to do yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas, because your mind is, why does shaitan make you drink alcohol? Right? Shaitan makes you drink alcohol because innahu min amalu shaitan, because it is khamar. It covers your brain, and when man covers his brain, what happens? Now all that's left is his limbic system, his lust, his desires, what he wants, his inhibitions are gone. And so now you put suggestions in there without the filter of the brain. Okay? So in the same way, by the way, with the Arabic class, what we're trying to do is that instead of dhikr going straight to your heart without understanding, we want it to filter through your brain and then go into the heart. That's why Allah put the head first and then the heart. So that the what is it that I'm accepting is clear, and then you accept it, okay, in your heart. It has to go from the top to the bottom, otherwise it doesn't have the effect. Whether it is negative things, whether it is positive things, okay? So are you a zombie? Are you somebody who, when you're on your phone, you lose track of yourself and track of your time, and you're so engrossed on your phone? There are many strategies to pull people out of the zombie state. Whether it is your kids, whether it is yourself, whether it is between husband and wife. I'm telling you, this is so important. Please, if you feel this was helpful for you, share this with somebody else. Okay? And subscribe to my channel and take my Arabic class, because the biggest thing you can do to help yourself in this situation that we're in today is, number one, to get out of this zombie state. That's like the basic thing that has to be done, because all the relationships are affected by this, and we are ourselves affected by this, and we're not affected by the dhikr of Allah, because anytime we have to do anything to grow, anytime we have to do anything to be in a discomfort, right, we hesitate. We hesitate because we're not used to using our rational mind anymore. In fact, one of the best strategies to pull people out of this state of being a zombie, right, where you're driving from point A to point B and you don't even know what happened, this automatic state of perpetually being in that state where you're not in the state of dealing with your aql, you're not in a state of dealing with your cognitive mind, you're not actually thinking what you're going to, your mom yells at you, you just yell back. It's just an automatic thing, you didn't even think. Or your spouse yells at you, just yell back, you didn't even think. Right? You didn't even think. That's what video games make you, teach you to respond without thinking. Okay? Boom, 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 boom. It's the same repetitive thing over and over again, from one scene to the next thing. It's the same few buttons.
Okay, I'll admit it. You got me.
Oh, subhanallah. I was like, was that Siri? That was strange. Subhanallah. Anyway, so it's the same few buttons you play over and over again, and you become comfortable with that, and then you don't use your cognitive mind. You don't use your brain. Even though you may be thinking, yes, I am using strategy, adventure, but it's a very limited thing, and it has too much enjoyment. Too much enjoyment. And then when you come to your cognitive self, your real self, you have to actually use your brain. So when you're studying Arabic, or studying anything for that matter, you have to deal with that cognitive mind aspect of you. You have to deal with that part of you. You have to deal with your brain. You use your aql. Okay? You have to think deeply. This is why Allah created us. Everything is confusing in this state of subconsciousness. As long as you are in this state of being a zombie, things are confusing. If you want to come to yaqeen, certainty, clearness of mind, clearness of thought, you have to come out of this state. Okay? One of the things I do, I'm sharing with you my personal suggestion, not even a suggestion, just saying what I do, because I know when I'm dealing with my phone. I know if I'm watching a video or doing something of that nature, even driving. I usually will do what the Prophet said to do when you go to a store. The dua of the Prophet ﷺ when you go to a store, because what did the Prophet say? The worst of places is the marketplace. So for that, the dua of the Prophet, La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, lahul mulk wa lahul hamd, yuhyi wa yumit, biyadihi al-khair wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. At least I'll read that one time, but if I can do more dhikr during the time I'm using my phone, during the time I might be watching something, if I'm watching something, at least in the beginning, I'll say this dua so that whatever effect it's going to have to me negatively inside, it can be blocked. So this is just something for the students of knowledge to also be aware of, and for myself to be aware of, because we live in this world where technology is taking away our mind, our ability to think, like calculators even. It started with calculators and things like that, but now our ability to do things physically, our ability to use our brain, our aql, right, has been and aql is one of the sacred things. And so there should actually be a study on how much aql do we have to use a day to actually be in that state where we can fight our desires. Because if you're not using your aql, your knowledge says A, your desires, your subconscious says B, how is aql going to defeat your desires? It's not going to be able to defeat it unless it has some strength. So we have to have some sort of study, some sort of idea, if somebody has done research on this, how much of your aql, your brain, your cognitive mind do you have to use to be able to overcome your desires? Because if you always want to be playing in a video game and you don't want to be distracted, right? You don't want to be in any state of discomfort. You don't want to be in a state where you're not relaxed, right? You want your life to just run smoothly like that, and you don't want to use your mind and to actually engage people, then we are in a lot of trouble. And so if you want to learn Arabic, you want to learn Quran, you have to work starting today on getting out of the zombie state of mind. Because Quran requires somebody that is not Quran, to dive into the Quran and the meaning in the Quran, right, ultimately will require you to come out of this zombie state and to actually read Quran with your aql completely, fully engaged. So in case people don't know, I'm offering a course, inshallah, that I feel inshallah, especially if we have enough people, because then I can dedicate more time, more resources of mine to this. If we have enough people, I'm starting an Arabic class course in which we deal with Surah Al-Kahf, a very important surah of the Quran, considering the times that we live in. It'll become more and more evident as we read Surah Al-Kahf, and we're going to read Surah Al-Kahf in quite a comprehensive way, inshallah. Okay, but we're going to learn the Arabic language, and it's going to be 32 classes, and we'll be in a WhatsApp group or a Telegram group or whatever, and we will be communicating every day, 30 seconds or so. I'll throw out quizzes and stuff like that, but I'll do the method I use to teach is I teach the text, the words in one class, and do tafsir of that. The next day I give one principle or a few principles of grammar and go back to the first lesson and apply it there. And I continuously will do that. Like, it'll be inshallah 16 classes or more, whatever it takes for me to teach whatever I want to teach. And inshallah, at the end of this class, people should be good enough to understand 50 to 80% of the Quran, depending upon the time and the hard work that they spent. Okay, so this is an opportunity that by 6 months, 32 classes, going to be 4 months. 4 months from now, you can be in a place where you can hear Quran and you can know exactly what it is saying. And that will be a moment you will never forget. Okay, I remember the first time I started understanding Quran, I didn't even realize I was understanding. I was just like reading it, and it was like reading a book. And I was like, oh. And then somewhere like after like a few 2-3 ayahs, I was like, wait, I didn't even have to stop and look at a dictionary this time. So that moment is a very significant moment, and that is a very good moment, because when you learn Quran and you learn the Arabic language, you'll be able to teach your children, you'll be able to teach your wife, your spouse, or hold classes yourself and teach other people. And so I want to create a Quranic learning movement. There's other things I want to do along with that, learning the asuls of the deen, asuls of the fiqh, dealing with Islamic eschatology, breaking down or critiquing Western philosophy. There are a lot of other things in my mind that I want to do, knowledge of Islamic history, purification of the soul. All these things are in my mind, but I want to start off with the key. The key, okay, that if you're going to do any work for Islam, you have to have this key, and it's called the basics of the Arabic language. Okay, and so you will be so profoundly happy for that moment where you can read Surah Al-Kahf and completely understand it, inshallah, but you can read any part of the Quran and understand the majority of it, inshallah. So I hope that comes true, and you all do dua for me to be a good teacher, inshallah. I will do dua for you all to be good students, and and that if you are interested, then inshallah join. Inshallah, jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.